Dear students, welcome to the second session of the Sai Ascent program. The topic for today is the Sai difference, interdisciplinary learning, and future ready skills. It's my pleasure to welcome our esteemed speakers for today. Firstly, we have Dr. Subrata Day, a seasoned professional with over 28 years of global experience across USA, Europe, Australia, and India. His expertise spans business management, media communication, and education technology, with leadership roles in companies like Rallis India, Work Hard Limited, and Enable Mobile Technologies. An alumnus of IIM Ahmedabad, Dr. Day also holds masters from Wake Forest University and a PhD from the University of Adelaide. He's a three-time international fellowship recipient and has taught at leading institutions across the globe. Dr. Day is the Dean of School of Arts and Sciences at Sai University and also the Distinguished Professor at School of Business at SaiU. We are honored to have you here, sir. Welcome for today's session as a speaker. Secondly, we have very delighted to welcome Professor Gopi Rethinaraj. Professor Rethinaraj is a distinguished academic whose career spans across physics, sustainability, and public policy. He holds a PhD in nuclear engineering from University of Illinois and also held teaching and research positions at globally renowned institutions, including the National University of Singapore, Harvard Kennedy School, and the Indian Institute of Science. The unique background that bridges scientific expertise and public communication, Professor Rethinaraj has led several national and international research projects on energy policy, nuclear risk, and science engagement. Earlier in his career, he was also an award-winning science reporter with the Indian Express. A passionate advocate for public interest science, he continues to work at the intersection of technology, society, policy, making complex scientific issues accessible and relevant to wider audiences. At SaiU, Professor Gopi is the controller of examinations and the Dean Academic Affairs, and also the distinguished professor at SaiU School of Arts and Sciences. With that, we welcome you, sir, as a speaker for today, and over to you, professors.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nalai. So, how do you want to get this done? Should we make some initial remarks and then make it more interactive, Subrat?
Yeah, I think if anyone, we can just give them 30 seconds or so, 1 minute. If anyone has any starting questions or queries which they have already thought of, then they can put it on the chat box and we'll address that. And then we can start from there. Or otherwise, we will start from our side.
So, students, I think if you have any concerns or questions regarding the program or before joining the SaiU academically, right? So any academic related questions you can post in the chat box, probably professors will answer that. Or you can raise your hand, we'll enable you to talk. You can ask the professors directly. And then probably after the questions been answered, we can formally start the session for the topic for today. Is there any questions? You can raise your hand, students, or you can put in the chat box.
They have the option to unmute for the audience.
Yeah, they can raise their hand. We can enable them to unmute. Yeah. So or else we can, meanwhile, if they can ask the questions, we can start it formally and probably we'll wait for questions at the end of the session also. That is okay.
No, I was just asking, is there any option for the audience to unmute and speak?
That's what, sir. So they can raise their hand. We can enable them to talk.
Okay.
We can unmute.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Think that is a no, or probably they might be thinking of some questions. So meanwhile, shall we start?
One thing in the meanwhile, when we start, one thing I would suggest is that if the participants, I assume that the participants in the audience, most of them have already joined, taken admission in Sai University. So if you can just give your, area or program in which you are joining, and maybe your name and just the area that you are joining, you can put it in the chat box. So it will also help us to know, which program you are basically looking at, what's your background. And you can just put it in the chat box, is which area are you coming from. Okay, Gopi, so we can start, I think, from our side.
Okay. Should I start or what? How do we?
Uh, I think, from my side, I have certain pointers which I think you will be the perfect person to express. Is that I think there is a lot of uh, often misunderstanding or confusion when it comes to liberal arts education or interdisciplinary education, because this has become extremely important in the last
Mm.
5 years. And given your experience in multiple fields, because you have traversed across physics, sustainability, environment, and even journalism, so you have a vast array of this thing, which is the perfect interdisciplinary kind of approach that we need. So, if you could start by maybe explaining to the student as to how this liberal arts has become so important in the current scenario, current
Okay.
global scenario where everyone is speaking about AI and everything. So where is liberal arts placed in that?
Thank you. Thank you, Subrat. As Mr. Nella introduced the speakers, you can see that I have traversed different areas, but I have to admit that I never had a formal liberal education in my undergraduate years. So, all my life, I've been trained in conventional disciplinary streams. My first two degrees were in physics, and my PhD was in nuclear engineering. So, I was trained as an aero specialist. What made me more liberal and interdisciplinary was the work experience of the past 20 to 25 years. There are, of course, universities in the US which offer liberal education soon after high school. So, if you look at India, the idea of liberal education or multidisciplinary education at the undergraduate years, as Professor Day mentioned, it is relatively recent, I would say about a decade, starting with the establishment of Ashoka University and some of the universities in North. And even today, after 10 or 12 years, we have only half a dozen universities which can be called truly liberal and promoting interdisciplinary education, which includes Sai University. Again, the notion that liberal education is something that we have borrowed from the West is also not accurate, because India has had a rich tradition uh, in a broad based education, but it was actually in ancient times. If you look at the ancient universities of Takshashila or Nalanda, there is a recorded history that people from all over the world came to India to study grammar, Ayurveda, surgery, politics, warfare, astronomy, and arts, and so on. And who were graduated in these universities were probably the elite, those who were driven by curiosity, like philosophers, scholars, and even kings graduated from these universities. And if you come back to the modern notion of liberal education, it again goes back to the Greek period, where they trained students in seven basic arts, which was classified as quadrivium and trivium. The quadrivium included disciplines like geometry, astronomy, music, and arithmetic, and then additional studies of grammar, rhetoric, and logic was known as trivium. So, if you look at the modern version of liberal education or liberal arts education, there are elements which are drawn from these seven elements. So, the idea of liberal education is to provide a broad intellectual exposure to the students, and then let them pick their area of interest in which they specialize. Unfortunately, 200 years of British rule have created education as a silo based program, where the British were primarily interested in creating the workforce for the bureaucracy and other requirements. So, our education, Indian education, tended to be more specialized, largely because of largely during the British period. Otherwise, if we look at the early education, even though it was restricted to elite, it can be considered in the modern parlance, which was more liberal and multidisciplinary. So the idea why would liberal multidisciplinary education make sense today is that we are repeatedly hearing that going forward we may not have stable jobs and job markets are going to evolve, and what students need to be prepared is to become lifelong learners. So universities like SaiU, and if you look at our curriculum, we are very particular about borrowing these elements from ancient tradition and also the Western tradition to provide a broad intellectual exposure which focuses on skills that would prepare students to become lifelong learners, which is what are going to make them future proof. And this, in my view, is not only intellectually appealing, but it also makes practical sense because students will be required to constantly learn new skills at an increasing frequency. And the way in which Sai University's curriculum is structured, factors all these elements so that students, when they graduate, they are not just prepared for their first job, but they are also prepared for life in terms of becoming lifelong learners and also be able to face confidently the uncertainties of future. So that is my. I'll stop here, Subrat, and then I would also be since you have also had a very rich and diverse experience across disciplines, and I would like you to also pitch in with your introductory remarks so that students have enough, to ask in terms of questions and interactions.
Thank you, Gopi. I think you, uh, I mean, displayed very nicely. I mean, explained very nicely how from the traditional times, from the Nalandas and Takshilas times, how liberal arts basically is not a new concept. It's not an American concept that has come in, but basically a concept which was there much before. I would, in fact, take a step where you ended and say that in modern India also we have quite, which is in the 20th century itself, we have an example of a liberal arts university thought of by a Nobel laureate, nonetheless, than Rabindranath Tagore. And his first effort to build a university at Shantiniketan was absolutely what we are trying to do today is that building a cross-cultural, disciplinary university, and where he believed that we will not be able to produce independent thinkers and leaders in the say in any field unless we have this cross-disciplinary approach. And if you look at the Shantiniketan model, he basically brought in intellectuals from across the world, and they were inspired by his ideas. And he said it is just not enough to know sculpture, but along with sculpture, you need to know art also, and you need to know literature also. You need to know science also, because sculpture has a scientific aspect, it has an artistic aspect, it is a literary aspect. So there are different angles to that. So his way of thinking, in fact, introduced us to the first liberal arts university in modern India, whereas we had forgotten that tradition, as you had rightly pointed out, during the British times. But he brought it back again. Now, in giving my own example, I would say it is very similar to yours. Is also that I did not have the luxury like you did not have also to study in a liberal arts university during my undergraduate years, and it was very much focused on finance and economics. So it was economics, and then did my postgrad from IIM Ahmedabad, which was marketing, and then worked in the corporate world and realized that if you really want to be a path breaker or thinker who gets intellectually stimulated by the field of marketing, it is just not enough to learn marketing in a business school, because the business school has limitations of those 18 months or 20 months in which they have to finish their curriculum. And no matter how good that is, like whether you're studying in Harvard or IIM Ahmedabad, they will not be able to teach a marketing person the intricacies of how culture impacts marketing. how sociology is very important for marketing, how psychology, basically knowing the nuances of psychology, is important for marketing. So we study branding, but we study branding in a very, very kind of focused, narrow approach of branding, given the limitations that it has. And I realized that we are often at the mercy of advertising agencies, the branding managers, marketing managers, and even I saw computer scientists and engineers, like, they are just taken for a ride by people in the branding, because just they do not have the idea of what actually where the market lies. And the biggest example of that, perhaps in the last 20 years, was the failure of Nano. So I always give this example is the if, for example, Tata having the biggest branded executives from all the top colleges and engineers from the top colleges, then why didn't someone realize that what are the problems in the common mind psychology? Why they did not buy and did not go for it? And in order to know that, I think it was very important that people who came from that particular field, marketing or engineering, they failed to probably realize the sociological aspects or the cultural aspects of why people in India buy cars. So, so I'm giving you a realistic example of how a huge investment out of with a very good intention might be a failure simply because we do not have cross-cultural, probably other people who make decisions do not have cross-cultural abilities to think through. And that is where liberal arts education has become very important in the current context. And corporates have now realized that a simple engineer or a simple computer scientist or a simple manager will not be able to solve problems unless they have interdisciplinary knowledge. And that's what you see well across. And that is the reason when I did my master's, second master's in US, that was actually a liberal arts university. And though I was studying master's in communication, we had to study almost everything. We had to study psychology, cultural studies, media studies, a little bit of science involved in the communication, and we are involved in quite a lot of technology programs which were involved in communication. So it was well-rounded kind of education, and given the last point that you said, that was about the tremendous worry in the Indian parents and students is the unstable or uncertain future that we are probably looking at, which is expressed in the media every day. I was reading that just the other day that 9 crore jobs are at stake because of AI. Now, when I say I use the word at stake and not job loss, simply because it will not be a loss of jobs of 9 crores, but it will be basically a huge shift in jobs. So these 9 crore people might be affected by this AI, and they might have to unlearn and relearn certain new things at this point. So some of the people might be in their middle ages, and some of them might be in the senior category. And that is the real challenge. So the liberal arts basically is backtracking and doing a backward integration of what is required in this current scenario where AI and the technology has made certain things uncertain and made us very important to unlearn and relearn things in a new way, which is not simple looking at a problem from one particular angle. So that's what I think where the liberal arts education is extremely important. Whether you study in a liberal arts university or you don't study, it is imperative that you would have.
Thank you, Subrat. I think uh, you know, I made a huge, error in overlooking the 20th century example. Tagore's Shantiniketan in many ways is a very unique experiment, which can be considered as a revival of India's liberal arts tradition in modern times. But unfortunately, it became a singular experiment. We should have actually created more Shantiniketan, whereas it became very provincial because it was located in one particular. I'm sure Tagore was more cosmopolitan. He didn't even believe in nationalism. He wanted
Exactly.
to attract the best minds from all over the world. And that is the example of Shantiniketan. And what Shantiniketan, at least as envisioned by Tagore, was to create graduates who will be broadly educated, not narrow specialists, while also creating disciplinary experts. Of course, the famous alumni is, of course, Amartya Sen. Amartya Sen won the Nobel Prize for his work in economics, but Amartya Sen has written extensively on politics, science, society, philosophy. And I'm sure that Shantiniketan was a huge influence on Amartya Sen's intellectual development. I think he has also recorded it in his own biography. And the second point that you mentioned is about parents worrying about what will be the value of a liberal education. Because we have to dispel the myth that liberal education is something for elites or something that is a luxury product. I would make a strong case that it is essential because of the evolving job market. And both you and I, Subrat, we have kids who are in college. So I believe that the parents of most of the students who have joined online would be of our generation. So even if you look at our generation, you talk to anyone in your own known circles, they would have changed their job 4 or 5 times, either in the same field or completely different fields. If you go to back to our parents' generation, probably they started with a job and retired in that job. So even we have seen how job market has evolved within a generation's time. And going forward, our kids may not have even jobs. They might have only projects or short-term gigs, and the kind of way in which the job market is evolving demands that students, number one, they are adaptable, and they are quick learners. And this is what I believe a liberal education would provide. So, on an operational sense, what a liberal education means is, just to give an idea to the audience, unlike most engineering and arts and science college, where students are required to study a set of courses which has been thrust on them, in a liberal arts universities, students have the flexibility. So they have the flexibility to study whatever they want. So once they declare their major, of course, they have to take a certain minimum number of courses to get a degree in that field. But they still have a lot of flexibility to expand their horizons. For example, a computer science graduate who would have ideally chosen literature, for example, but didn't choose because of parental pressure or peer pressure, would still be able to pursue that as a minor in a liberal university. So, major for job and minor for keeping their passion intact. And not only for keeping their passion intact, today industry leaders, whether it is Mr. Narayana Murthy or the other industry captains, they are constantly reinforcing the importance of thinking out of the box. And what it means is that they don't want, as you mentioned in your remarks, they are not interested in a regular engineer who has a BTech. They want an engineer who can think using a different disciplinary lens, either marketing lens or an economics lens or even a psychologist lens. So we see that there is actually a practical value of equipping oneself with multidisciplinary insights. So both interdisciplinarity, flexibility in customizing your learning pathway is what differentiates a liberal university like Sai University from another university. So people may ask that a Sai University graduate also graduates with a BTech or a BA or a BSc. So in what way would it differ from a conventional engineering college or a conventional arts and science college? It is actually the ability of the students to customize their learning pathway, so which is not available in most universities. So this is actually ingrained in our curriculum, and we give this flexibility and freedom to the students. And this is what differentiates a Sai University graduate or a liberal graduate from a liberal multidisciplinary university from a conventional place. And this makes enormous sense in the present context because of the uncertainties in the job market. So we want to reassure, if there are some parents who are attending this session, we want to say that a liberal multidisciplinary education is actually a best investment for your children's future, because nobody knows what kind of jobs will be created in the next 4 or 5 years. If the industry says that this skill is very important for survival, they are simply lying. Even the industry doesn't know what kind of jobs will become relevant 10 years from now. So, the best we can do for our students is to train them to become lifelong learners. This is a point that I made initially, and also which Subrat made during his extensive comments.
Yeah, I think that's exactly is that when parents are saying we have, I think, to make the point more clear, I would say, give an example is that most of us aspire, the new generation and even the parents are aspiring to have the recent version of the Apple phones, but the guru of Apple, Steve Jobs, himself was probably the best example of liberal artish upbringing, in the sense he actually was mm, he did not have much faith in the conventional education. The only course that he completed with rigor and attention was that of calligraphy. And I mean, when people of this generation, or even my daughter uses Apple products, I think they do not realize that the Apple's fonts look so different simply because Steve Jobs' vision and his training in calligraphy, which probably an engineer would never think of, that calligraphy course can be done by this thing. So it's just not technology. So in fact, my own PhD copy was in this area where I was trying to see, because I was usually working most of the time in the IT labs. But one of the things that I was trying to see is how the interfaces that we use on our laptops or mobile phones or games actually is just not a product of coding, but it is a product of society and culture and the whole dynamics that economics also, which, for example, an interesting thing that came up was that our bicycle that we use probably would not have looked like that if the queen had
Yeah.
not visited uh, that the innovator at that one particular point of time and expressed her interest in making it look in a particular way. So the economics, politics, society, culture, everything impacts this thing. And I try to display that in a very through actual example by developing an interface and then trying to see how the ones who developed the interface were themselves biased because of their cultural and social upbringing or whatever it is. And that is the reason why the interface looked in that way. Otherwise, it could have looked some other way also. So, and most of the times we were working in the way it happens for future engineers also and psychologists and people who are even going for BP. The design team, I was once leading the design team in an IT startup which designed mobile interfaces. The design team has people from all backgrounds, by the way. There's a very misunderstanding that engineers dominate, not at all. Is that Apple, Google, or any of the startups also, you will see they have sociologists, psychologists, artists, design people, along with the technology people over there. So there's a whole mix of people in the design team who actually put their brains to design an interface, and it is the output might be a technology output, but the input is not necessarily a technology input. And therefore, that these are the learnings which have actually provoked people. And if any parents are there in this today's meeting, I would like to tell them that if you want your sons and daughters to be CEOs or the vice presidents of top companies, the best way to go is to go for a liberal arts, whether you study in Sai University or some other place. That is not the matter. The issue is that they have to be well rounded, because most of the leaders that you read of in newspapers today, they are all in the top companies across the world. Even if you delve into their background, they have been interdisciplinary. That doesn't, of course, one thing, Gopi, we need to, I think, make it clear to them is that interdisciplinary does not mean you do not have a rootings in a major area of
Yeah,
interest.
yeah,
And
yeah, that's true. That's true.
that is what brings us to this concept of major and minor. So for example, my major might be management, but that did not stop me from borrowing and learning from many other areas in order to make
Mm.
that primary area stronger. Similarly, your area might be nuclear
Mm.
physics, but you borrowed from several other areas, and I think all of us who have seen the film Oppenheimer subscribe to that. Oppenheimer was again borrowing from Indian culture and tradition in order to, his expression when the atom bomb took off was that of a Sanskrit slok from Gita. So it shows how a scientist at the topmost level, even some 70 years back, was actually thinking of an intercultural kind of thinking and education. So that probably, I think, taking off from there, Gopi, if you could maybe throw some light on the way Sai University structures its curriculum in the sense of the way the major, minor, and thing opens up, and that will give
Okay.
students some idea.
So the way Sai Universities, I'm assuming that the participants here are mostly for the arts and sciences program, I guess, right? So the non-tech majors, or are they tech majors also?
I think
But even if
non-tech.
it's a tech, okay, but even if it's a tech, what I say would apply to everyone.
Hmm.
So except the law school where the curriculum is regulated by the Bar Council of India, and they have a very set syllabus, so they cannot deviate from that. All the other students from all the other schools, whether they are doing BTech or BA, BSc in Arts and Sciences, or the School of Technology, Biotech, or the School of Business, all the students have flexibility as a common feature. So in the first year, when they join, even if you have declared your interest to major in a particular area, you can still change at the end of 2 semesters. So that's what I want to convey first. So the first year is largely exploratory. The first year, many of the courses, at least 50 to 60% of the courses that students will be taking in the first year is common courses. They will be sitting with students who are pursuing different majors from different schools. So that's the beauty of the first year exploratory curriculum. So the way it works in Sai University is for a 4 year program, students have to fulfill 160 credits of coursework and other work for graduating. So this can be secured through class based courses and even non-class based courses, internships, um, and um, and if you look at our requirement, students will have to fulfill only 50% of the total graduating credit in the chosen major. For example, if a student is joining a 3 year program or a 4 year program, for a 3 year program, the graduating credit is 120. So it is roughly 40 credits per year. So if you, for those who are not familiar with the credit system, students typically take about 4 papers or 4 courses, 5 courses in a semester, and each are about 4 credits. So 4 credit means they have 4 hours of contact with the instructor. So an instructor may have 2 hour sessions per week. So that's how it works. So most of the courses in Sai University are 4 credit courses. So if a student is taking on an average 5 courses per semester, they would meet the total graduating credits of 120 at the end of 3 years. Or if they are staying for a 4 year program, 160 credits. So of this total graduating credit, 50% minimum should be from the chosen major. So a psychology student, if he or she is staying for a 4 year program, 80 credits should be from psychology. And the remaining courses can be from a bucket of courses. So in addition to the major courses which are specified by the school, there are about 7 courses which students will have to take in order to fulfill the interdisciplinary core requirements. So it is these 7 courses that provides the students the broad intellectual training and skills. So these courses include, for example, of these 7 courses, 4 are mandatory. So courses like writing and communication, which is a very important skill for professional development, and then critical thinking, a course on Indian Constitution and democracy, and a course on environment and sustainability, because the University Grants Commission has mandated that all students, irrespective of what they are studying, should have a course on environment and sustainability, given the importance of issues like climate change and global warming for the future. So, in addition to these four mandatory courses, students can also take courses in artistic appreciation, courses in science, technology, and society, courses in global challenges, courses in frontiers. Frontiers is a course which attempts to provide an introduction to all the cutting edge research which is happening in different fields, in social sciences, in arts and humanities, in basic sciences, in engineering and technology. So it gives the students a kind of an excitement to know about what are the big questions that are being addressed by the top researchers who are working in different fields. So these are the 7 courses which students have to take in order to fulfill the graduating requirements. So the remaining is all left for students. The remaining credits can be is left to the students. They can do a minor. For example, a BTech student can do a minor in law, or a minor in economics, or a minor in psychology. A major student, a BSc psychology student, can actually do a minor in economics, or even a minor in law, or even a minor in biological sciences. So, whatever course, whatever major is offered can be a minor for another student. So, so this is where the flexibility comes in. So when I mentioned at the beginning that students can customize their learning pathway, this is what it means. Once they have decided their major, then the remaining 50% of the credit is left to their exploration and choice. So finally, even for example, let us take 2 students who are joining the same program, say a psychology major. Their transcript will not look identical. So, student A might major in psychology and minor in environment and sustainability, or in economics. Another psychology student might minor in law. So this is what flexible pathway means for a incoming Sai University graduate student. Of course, this will still be new to you, but once you join the university, we are going to have week-long orientation that will be provided by this Office of Academic Affairs and the Office of Student Affairs, which will provide you a glimpse of how the student can divide the time between their intellectual pursuits and their co-curricular pursuits. So we want graduates to be well-rounded, not only intellectually, but also we want to provide support for students' cultural interest. If they are having interest in sports, they should be pursuing. If they have interest in music and arts and other activities, of course, we strongly encourage them to pursue all their interests. So the student, when they graduate after 3 years or 4 years, is a really well-rounded graduate. So the curriculum doesn't follow any fixed template. So this is one thing that I want to tell all the audience here, that you basically, it's like a buffet system, right? So it's not like a la carte. Most conventional universities, once you have decided that you want to pursue a particular major, you have to consume whatever it is given. Whereas in Sai University's liberal education model, it's more like a buffet system, because students are free to explore what they want, but within the confines of graduating requirements. So the student has 1 year to really even make up their mind where in what they want to major. For example, a student might join the university thinking that he or she wants to major in psychology. But after taking some economics courses in the first year, they might be drawn to economics. So they still have the possibility of shifting the major without any problem. And whatever coursework was done is not going to go waste, because every work that was done from the time of joining will count towards their graduating requirement. So this is how our curriculum is structured, and it places students' learning at the forefront. So it is a student-centered curriculum. So of course, as educators, we demand that a student should have taken certain courses if they want to obtain a minor in a particular field. Once the student has chosen, they have a lot of flexibility to accumulate credits. And in addition to classroom credits, students can also accumulate up to 56 credit. Um, that's nearly 1/3 of the total graduating credits can be obtained outside classroom. For example, independent research. A student can undertake independent research under the supervision of a faculty or under the supervision of a faculty from another institution and obtain credits. Of course, we have a cap for each category of these non-classroom credits. Then students can accumulate up to 12 credits through internships because students have 3 summers in a 4-year program. They have 3 summers. So every summer, students can accumulate up to 4 credits through internship work. And it also counts towards their graduating credits. And students who are staying for the honors program, especially the BA, BSc students, will be able to do a dissertation. And this dissertation work provides research exposure at the undergraduate level. Remember that today the University Grants Commission has made a lot of changes in higher education. For example, to enroll in a PhD program, you don't need a master's or an MPhil. With a 4-year undergraduate program, you can directly enroll in a PhD program. And for those students who have a research orientation or research interest, the 4-year program gives them exposure to research. Because the 4th year is largely going to be based on research-based courses and research dissertation. So this is how our curriculum is structured. I don't want to overwhelm you with the minute details of credits and coursework because you will be hearing about those in the first 2 weeks of your orientation. But to give you broadly an idea, this is how your curriculum framework is structured.
I'll take one point I was hearing when you was giving the example of psychology students taking minor in law or economics. I'll give you a realistic example of why why would a student who is majoring in psychology take a minor in law, and why a student majoring in psychology, again another student B is taking a minor in economics, and does it make sense, or is it just whims and fancies? It's not only whims and fancies, and it is completely dictated by what is again required. Is if you look, if most of you must be seeing a lot of web series nowadays, and there's a crime web series, you will see always most of 90% of these web series will involve psychologists, the police department, and it is the reality also. The forensic department, the police department relies highly on criminal psychologists, and even the Supreme Court and the High Courts actually empanel psychologists for opinions on critical cases. So psychologists play a very important role in the social legal framework of a country. So they are highly in demand in the legal fraternity also. Same way psychologists can be in demand in economics is that I come from a management background, so I'll tell you about the share market. We all see, I have taken one course, like Gopi is saying, that if you want, I think one of the things you need to mention is the audit option. Is
Mm.
that even if you have a passion for a particular course, and probably you don't want to take the exams, but you just want to learn and gain from that. So you have the option to audit a course also. It is mentioned in your transcript as audit that you have taken the course, but you are not necessarily doing it for grades, so the grades do not influence your CGPA. Now, coming to the example of psychology with economics, for example, if you look at the share market today, one side of the share market is economics. Another side of the share market, which is probably the bigger side, is the public sentiment. So it's a sentiment driven economy in the sense people often do not buy or not buy simply because they have the money or do not have the money. There's also the psychology of buying. So the psychology of buying itself is driven by economic factors. So a psychologist often is very much required. So all the top, I once worked for a short time in McKinsey. They recruit psychologists from the top colleges. Simply, though they do not have any business background. The reason is that they often come up with projects where it's a branding project and psychologists play a very important role in branding. Or it's turning around a company where people are probably not buying the product and how to make them buy the product. So it's again the psychology of it. So it's not often just the money, and it is also not only the money. So the psychology people. So I'll give you another option is psychology students choosing neuroscience as a minor. Why would they choose neuroscience as a minor? The sense psychology as it is taught in the typical psychology syllabus is mostly the behavioral aspect of one psychology, but it is not so one side of psychology is biological, another side of psychology is neurological. I mean, biological and other side is behavioral. So the behavioral aspect is probably dealt very nicely by the psychology courses. Whereas if you really want to go down into the neurons level in the brain, then it is the neuroscience which is deciding how people behave. So if a psychology student has a combination of minor with neuroscience, the student becomes a very attractive potential for future research projects which are being carried out in medical institutes and research programs across the world.
And
And
neuroscience is one of the offerings we do have at
yeah,
yeah.
yes,
Glad that you brought that possibility, psychology with neuroscience.
neuroscience. It's a very attractive, very attractive proposition. And but again, I would request all the students to follow your passion. So you don't choose something just because others are choosing it or whatever it is. They say everything psychology with law is also very attractive in the job market or in future career. Psychology with economics is also very attractive. Psychology with neuroscience is also very attractive. It depends on what orientation you have and what interests you have, passion you have. And these are the very different combinations that you can try out over here. And if someone wants to look into the psychology of reading, for example, we were once looking at the problematic aspects of ebooks, why ebooks have not taken off in the way they were supposed to take off. And ebooks are obviously the ebook gadget has been designed with the technologists, but their technologists often fail to understand the culture of reading because they were just trained to code and design the technology, but they were not trained to understand the cultural and the social aspects of reading, which is a literary area. So I think psychology along with literature also becomes very attractive for people for the consumption of literary material. So these are all the possible combinations that you can try off. And I think you can give more examples maybe from other majors
Yeah, yeah.
of
So
those.
the thing is, students, I would broadly put, we want our science graduates to have more exposure in arts, humanities, and social sciences, and our social science and humanities graduates to have a basic level of science and quantitative literacy. I think this is what we emphasize, that. In all our graduates, even our BTech graduates who are going to mainly taking technical courses, there is a value. If you look at even the most popular minor among the BTech students at Sai University, it is economics and psychology. A large number of BTech students who are majoring in computer science, data science, they are actually choosing economics and psychology, and some take environment and sustainability. So these are the different ways in which you can combine technical skills with, or maybe I should not say technical and non-tech. I would say combining technology with social science and humanities, or combining humanities and social sciences with science and technology literacy. So that is actually the way forward. Um,
In fact, we would say that when I was giving the example of psychology and neuroscience, the vice versa also happens. Neuroscience
yeah,
students increasingly take psychology as their minor. So all those who have gone for neuroscience, they more often than not take
psychology.
the psychology as their minor. Students who have gone for biology, often take neuroscience as their minor. So these are all very different kinds of combinations that are possible. Economic students, economics majors taking psychology as a minor.
Yeah.
So and that combination of economics and psychology, as I have explained, is a very robust combination, which is required by uh, the corporates also and different institutions, and also for research.
Yeah,
And
behavioral economics is a huge area of
yeah, huge area.
curriculum. Yeah, yeah.
So that way, having said that, I think we should also point out that our science and arts students, or even if we have law students over here, though yes, you are right, law students are guided by the BCI, their course curriculum. But one advantage of doing law in Sai University is that law students are still free to take courses in several other areas.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it doesn't stop them. So BCI only requires them to follow their course mandate. But
In
we give
addition
you
to
the
that, we can do.
in addition to that, you can do courses from different schools. So we have 7 different schools. So you can go to the School of AI and course in AI, which will be very useful for law students. Or psychology students can also choose to do their minor in AI. That is very much possible. We allow that. So you look at it, it is almost like a mesh, crisscross mesh, that you have all possibilities, and you can work that out in the first year as to which part of this web you want to choose. Right.
Any question? I have not seen any questions so far from the audience.
Sir, we have two questions. You can find it in
Okay.
the Q&A. So
Okay.
one, I'll read it for you. It's from Sana Sukumar.
Okay.
How does the university ensure that the flexibility of the curriculum also translates into employability and meaningful opportunities after graduation?
Yeah, this is what I mentioned, no, that there are employers who are looking for graduates who are more well-rounded than narrowly trained specialists. And so this is how we would answer this particular question, because all the comments that we have been telling from the beginning is it is not just of intellectual value, or we are asking students to pursue because they can whet their curiosity appetite, but it is also because it makes practical sense in the present day employment market, which is very uncertain, and the demands of the employment market is also constantly evolving. So a student who is being trained in an interdisciplinary institution, has a better chance of facing this sort of uncertainty. So there's another question from Ari Desai about what GPA would be needed to get into student exchange. But our university follows a GPA scale of 10, and we advise students to keep a minimum of 8 if they are competing for all these prestigious. Ideally, 9 would be better, but at least minimum 8 if they are planning to apply for any competitive opportunities, whether it is internships, prestigious internships, or exchange programs. So all of this will require a very good transcript. So please ensure that you're maintaining a good GPA from semester one. So I've seen that students who took a slack in the for early semesters, they struggle to catch up because the advantage of early start can never be can be never overemphasized, because you have to maintain a consistently high GPA from the first semester if you want to retain an overall CGPA.
I would just like to add a couple of points about the employability factor. I think I've seen Gopi different universities address this employability question in very different ways. One of the things is that I find it often this thing is universities often claiming 100% placement and all of this. It's like coaching classes claiming 100% placement. Is that so you would basically never see Harvard or Stanford putting in their website ever 100% placement. I think placement, we are not trying to place students. We are trying to build a sterling career and leaders over here. So our choice or path is very different. But employability, see that today, if I look at it, in fact, I would say there is dearth of people who are skilled.
Yeah,
There is
that's the
no,
problem.
that's the
Everyone is
problem.
complaining, we have a lot of graduates, but not the kind of graduates we would like to hire. That's the
That's the problem. I mean, Narayana Murthy has been saying that for the last 10 years, like, the graduates over here are often frequently unemployable. And I have seen it in my own recruitment when I have gone to colleges, is that the problem is never of jobs. Jobs are plenty, plenty jobs are there. Uh, but what we stress on is that we make them attractive. For example, our students have gone for internship abroad in US, for example,
Mm,
two students going to University of Dartmouth and doing phenomenal research in the labs, neuroscience labs.
mm.
Like, that's the scale of things. And now they are obviously going out to the top universities for doing their master's program. So our career pathways that we think is in a very different way than other universities, and it is not simply like we catch you a job for 1 lakh per month or 50,000 per month. Those jobs,
Even if you
but
look, some of our very unexpected, we have a BA literature student who has received admission from top three universities, London School of Economics, University of Birmingham, and another university, Manchester. She has got admission in three top universities. And another student has also got admission, psychology student, all for pursuing masters in some of the best institutions in Europe. So, so the thing is, the kind of exposure that they have and the flexibility and freedom that they enjoy as students is what made this possible. So of course faculty do contribute, but more importantly, the learning environment and the flexibility that they enjoy, that is of immense value, which our students have demonstrated. um,
we have a placement cell, but often we see that most of the students love to, because their credentials become such that they love to get jobs on their own. So that
yeah,
is
yeah,
also an experience that they already have offers of internship from top places and this thing, best of the places. So the university has its own placement cell. So if you cannot do it on your own, we'll find you obviously the best possible choices. But most of the students are trained in such a manner
yeah.
that they have already, and I always say one thing is that while choosing universities, please choose jobs where the faculty is
Hmm.
experienced and well networked, because they will place you anywhere that you want to go. So I think that is one good thing I see in Sai University, is that the faculty actually all are very globally networked and all mostly globally trained, and therefore there is no dearth of opportunities. So if you are if you are really putting your work, then there is no
Yeah, I think
difficulty.
as you rightly mentioned, Subrat, of course we do have a placement office, but ideally we want our students to get opportunities on their own. That's
Hmm.
our goal. In fact, all the best examples that we showcase, they have got best internships, best masters offers for admission on their own. Of course, we write their letters, we write all their reference letters, but they didn't go through a placement office for all these opportunities. And of course, for students who are struggling, the placement office can help.
Yeah.
But most of our top students, they actually don't even consider placement office as the first. They explore on their own, and most of them make it. The only help that they expect from faculty is to provide all the bona fide letters on time and the reference letters on time, which is what we do. And they come and consult us about choosing the best universities in the field. And because most of our faculty members have international experience, we would be able to provide that, for them without much difficulty. Great. I think we are nearing at the end of the session. I think. Uh, Any other questions, Nellai?
Not yet, sir. So participants, if you have any more questions, you can put in the. I think we got one. Sir, I'm planning to major in neuroscience. Could I just know the names of the faculties and peers so it would be better for interaction?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. I think the question is, the student is asking whether Dr. Barucha is still here, but Dr. Barucha, because of personal reasons, he has left the university. But we have hired some really good people. Professor Anil, who has come from Germany. He is actually heading the neuroscience program, and we have some really top-notch biology faculty who have been trained in some of the best institutions in the world in Europe or in US. For example, another faculty in the biology program, he has worked at
Karimuthu.
Oxford for 5 years and University of Southern California for 3 years. And we will be having more adjunct faculty from Germany. And so we do have a very strong faculty now in neuroscience, full-time faculty. Um,
So
Another
I think
question is about choosing BBA finance as major. Subrata can take the question.
yes. What about what exactly is the question? Is that BBA finance, the student wants to choose BBA finance as major.
Hmm.
I can read it
What
for you, sir.
minor would be helpful to pursue a career in finance? Yeah, they can do data science, combining.
No, I think so you can definitely do BBA in finance, but at the same time, along with BBA in finance, you might find it very useful to do AI or even in computer science and data science. Because finance today is mostly about analytics. So I think if you are doing a minor in data science along with finance major in BBA, that will be extremely useful. And that is something a unique option that most of the business schools are not able to provide. So I think it's data science and AI should be your minor along with finance as major. That would be the best option for you. Uh, so any other question, Nilay?
Uh, no, sir. I think you have answered it correctly. So, I mean, she has said thank you. So, I think that's it. So, participants, if there are any more questions, you can post in the Q&A or you can raise your hand. You can ask the professors directly.
Wonderful. Thank you again for organizing this, Nellai, and it was a pleasure to interact with all the participants, and we look forward to seeing you in person on 28th.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you
Thank you
so
so much.
much. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you,
nice.
professors. Thank you,
Thank you,
participants.
Subrat. We'll catch up at the
Yeah.
afternoon meeting.
Yes, 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 yes,
Yeah,
yes.
and
Thank you.
participants, one quick announcement. So probably the next Sai Ascent program will be scheduled for the next Thursday. So that's you can watch out for the topic and get a call from a counselor personally and for the invite. Yeah, thank you.
And also for the like for the student who wants to get in touch with the neuroscience, that you may provide them the
Faculty, yeah, yeah.
number, yeah, faculty's number, Dr. Anil's number, so they can interact with Dr. Anil.
Sure. So, participants, if you want any academic related questions, you don't have to wait till the program. So, probably you can get in touch with your counselor. They can immediately connect with you, the concerned faculty. Like you can, post your queries and get it answered. Yeah. So thank you so much. Thank you, professors. Thank you for a wonderful time.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.